legend of one man who persuaded his friends to watch every Godzilla movie ever made. This world is on the brink of destruction. We need you now, Godzillavangelists! Godzillavangelists, a Geek Stew Network podcast, produced and hosted by Ryan Sargent, featuring Sam Schlenker and Joanna Brodecki. Hello and welcome to Godzillavangelists. I'm Ryan and I'm happy to have my pals Sam and Joanna here with me. Woo. As always, how you doing, guys?
Fantastic.
Feeling great, Ryan.
Why did it take you so long to say that? Yeah.
I had to think. I've just seen so many punches.
Your brain thought that you might have been punched, actually.
I can't tell at this point.
Today, as you might guess, we're talking about Pacific Rim. Now, do you guys want to know the greatest thing about Pacific Rim? It has nothing to do with the actual movie.
Absolutely.
It has the best Asylum, rip-off movie name ever, and the best porn parody name ever.
Okay, can I take a guess at both?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. I'm thinking Asylum is going to be lazy. It's going to be lazier than you think. So I'm going to just go out on a limb and say Atlantic Rim.
Yep, you nailed it.
All right, perfect. And then I'm going to go
ask,
porn parody.
What are we talking about? What is Asylum?
Porn parodies. It's like a super cheap knockoff movie studio production company that makes movies that are just trying to trick people into accidentally watching them, thinking it's the real thing. Grandpa
buys it on the grocery checkout.
See, I've already learned my new fun fact for the day, and we're not even 2 minutes into this.
Okay, so Ryan, porn parodies got to be Pacific Rim job.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yes. You nailed it on both counts.
Guys, I am
the master. Good work. 10 out of 10.
And with that glorious lead-in, let me welcome our guest today. So happy to have him here, Jordan Allen, the effects artist at Corridor Digital.
Hello. That was beautiful. Woo. Good guessing, Sam. Well done.
Oh, thank you.
And a fun fact, too, one of my friends is one of the stars of Atlantic Rim. Yeah,
really?
Yeah, we had a little premiere for it at an apartment complex back years ago when it was released, and it is just so funny, man. Asylum at its finest, really.
You should have told us that. We would have watched that one too.
Yeah, dude. Maybe add it to the list. It's a wild ride, man. I don't know. It's very Asylum. It is exactly what you'd expect, but not what Grandpa would expect, which is why he probably liked it.
I did see the Mystery Science Theater version, and that was a very entertaining episode.
Wait. Where do they get the money to make these movies?
I mean, didn't Asylum do Sharknado too? Or Sharknado as well? I think they did the Sharknado series. I feel like there's a market for that kind of stuff. It's like the same Birdemic or whatever it's called. That kind of movie. You kind of know going in. There's a cult following to it, certainly, where you just want to watch kind of like, what could you do with a 60th of the budget and 3% of the passion? Like, what is the result?
But before we get too deep into it, Jordan, I have to ask this of all our new guests. What was your giant monster experience before this? How many giant monster movies have you seen? What is your passion for the field like?
I mean, coming from a visual effects standpoint, I am one of the few people who goes into a movie and doesn't necessarily need a good cohesive story.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I've seen all the big major monster movies just for the city destruction stuff, just for the simulation side and the artistry that goes into that, because no matter how bad the story is, the visual effects they rip, man, and they just keep getting better and better. And the amount of visual effects shots and the quality and the complexity is just through the roof. And that to me is worth the price of admission right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny because, as advanced as we're getting, it's so weird how it doesn't really age that great. Even in just, 9 years since the first Pacific Rim, like you see all these advancements that have occurred that at the time didn't even filter through my brain. I just thought we reached the pinnacle. It's real now. And then 9 years later, you look back and you go, oh, well, no, there's this issue that you don't see in modern movies. And I'm sure that will continue. That's why I go to monster movies personally, just for the visual effects. So I've seen probably most of them, but you said, before we started recording, there's 38 Godzilla movies. So maybe I've only seen a fraction. I don't know.
Time to catch up, Jordan. Okay.
Yeah, I'm behind big time.
Have you seen any practical effects monster movies from the old days?
You're talking like the OG Godzilla.
Yeah.
I mean, my biggest experience with practical is Power Rangers. 100%, man. That's like, throw them in a little mask in a miniature city and just tear away. But as far as features, no, I don't think I've seen too much.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, you've got a big diving pool for a little monster movies to get into if you want.
Send me the 4-page list. I'll get started.
All right.
It might take you 6 years though.
Good luck. Yeah, that's right.
If you watch once a month, with several large hiatuses. So, Pacific Rim is, of course, Guillermo del Toro's love letter to Godzilla, Evangelion, and all the classic kaiju movies. I try not to have weird parasocial relationships with people I don't know, but Guillermo, every time I hear something about him, I'm like, I'm that guy. So I'll watch anything he does.
I also didn't look anything up before watching, and after the first one, I was like, man, not to give it away, but I liked that way more than I thought I would. Who did this? And then I was like, of course, no wonder. It just clicked. I feel too no, not even that much about him, but anytime I see his name, I'm like, the best. Love that guy.
He really is. I just watched the Cabinet of Curiosities show he produced. That was a lot of fun for the most part. But yeah, he is obsessed with Godzilla movies as I am, and you could really see that in Pacific Rim. The first time I saw it, I was thrown off by all the things it wasn't. I wanted him to go further with the weirdness, and I could feel it being held back by the studio. But now I could appreciate it much more because I knew what it wasn't going to be, so I could appreciate what it was.
Ryan, did we see this together in college? Because I
don't remember. We may have.
I also don't. I had that moment. I remember seeing it with a group, but I don't recall if you were in it. Which is a really weird thing, a mean-sounding thing to say. I just don't remember who I went with, but I remember seeing it with a group.
It's okay. I don't remember who I saw.
Okay.
Wow, I'm glad you two shared that moment together back in 2013.
Plot twist, it was just the two of us.
Yeah.
That is actually entirely possible. I feel like I just saw it with one person. So it may have been But yeah, just off the cuff, non-spoilery thoughts. How do you guys feel in general about Pacific Rim Uno?
I had a fun time, and I didn't think I was going to. I thought I was going to be bored. And then I was a little bored, but I was generally having a good time. Which is all I can ask for, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was underwhelmed, to be honest. Revisiting it.
Okay.
And I think for me, I mean, I'm a huge Sons of Anarchy fan, but for me, Charlie Hunnam, I think that's his name, right? The lead.
Yep.
Yeah.
There are two Charlies in this.
Yeah, Charlie Day and Charlie Hunnam. Yeah. And for me, it's Charlie Hunnam. He's one note to me always, and it kind of took me out of it, to be honest. I just saw Charlie Hunnam being like, "Hey, bro!" I didn't see anything that really attached me to that character. And so for me, it was more of just wow, there's still 45 minutes on this thing. Let's keep going. I don't know. I was kind of surprised, but I do remember feeling kind of similar in the theater too, where it's I'm kind of there for the action sequences and the attachment between Charlie and the love interest. And I don't know. It kind of felt shoehorned into me.
Interesting.
I welcomed the credits. It sounds kind of mean, but I was ready for it. I was like, yeah. I'm good.
And then he went, I gotta watch a fucking second one of these now? Jesus Christ.
Yeah. But Charlie's not in it. That Charlie's not in it. Charlie Day is in fact in the second one.
He is.
Charlie Day
really is.
We'll talk a lot more about Charlie Day. But Sam.
Well, I'm so glad Jordan said what he said, because when I saw it in the theater, I went with a group of people who all loved it, and everyone was just like buzzing coming out of it, like that was so awesome, the effects were so great, the design was so great, which the effects and the design are great. The design especially, like everything good about it in my opinion is Guillermo del Toro being a visual genius. Like that's everything good about it. Everything else, I think, and I felt even more strongly on rewatch, is certifiably very bad, and I don't care for this movie. And I think I really don't. Nothing about the story works for me. Basically, nothing works for me in this movie. And Charlie Hunnam is the single worst main character in a movie. This side of like my senior thesis. Like,
no. But what was that other one we watched with that really boring main
Aaron
character?
Tyler Johnson.
It's a duel between him and Aaron Tyler Johnson.
No,
and
Aaron Tyler is fucking worse because Aaron is trying harder. Aaron was trying harder and not succeeding at doing anything. I think Charlie was phoning it in,
man.
And exactly.
This one had the unfortunate curse of his character fulfilling the exact same kind of a role in the movie as, I forget her name already, his co-pilot girl who rescued Mako.
Mako, yeah.
She is like, they're like two characters who are fulfilling the same sort of role in the movie, and he is far less interesting and proceeds to both have a terrible romance with her that feels unwanted. Like, she doesn't want that. And two, he talks over her the whole movie. Like, she's literally just like looking at him while he says, kind of badly, because I don't think he's very good in this movie. He felt more egregious to me than Aaron Taylor Johnson, who was just boring.
Interesting.
Also, too, there was not only him, there was him, and then there was the British guy that looked like him, and then there was the older New Zealand guy that looked like him. And I was like, when did this movie came out right before Guardians of the Galaxy with Chris Pratt, and I feel like everyone in cinema was just like Chris Pratt's cousin that was going up on screen in that time.
His rival, who's like the other blonde hot guy, looks fucking just like him. Like, there are exactly times where I was like, is this just one man in a mirror? Like, what's going on? Like, it's crazy. No, every character's bad. I will contest every character is bad except Ron Perlman, and that
those shoes, bro. I want those shoes.
The shoes are great.
Gosh.
All right, before we get deeper. The battle lines are drawn. We'll see who wins out in this duel. But first, let's do the synopsis for people who may not have just watched it. All right, Pacific Rim. Sound effects at the ready. Jordan, feel free to jump in with any sound effects as Sam and Joanne.
Did they have sound?
We just add mouth sound effects to his synopsis, and they usually aren't very good.
No, they're usually the same and bad. But we do them.
We've had many people talk about how much they love the sound effects. So.
Who are many people who I want to know?
All my personalities. They all agree. So what, we just make noises, or is there like a set?
Fucking go off.
Just jump in. You need to spice up this synopsis. All right. Kaiju begin emerging from an undersea portal called the Breach. Thank you. Leaving humanity to fight back using giant robots called Jaegers. These robots require a psychic connection between two pilots to properly function, called the Drift. Brothers Yancey and Raleigh Beckett are two of these pilots, and a Jaeger called Gypsy Danger.
Hell yeah.
And I hope I don't get canceled for saying this name repeatedly. During a difficult fight with a kaiju, Yancey is killed mid-fight, traumatizing Raleigh and causing him to quit as a pilot.
What's the of quitting?
That's good. That's a good pout sound. Years later, stronger kaiju have wiped out all but 4 Jaegers, and humanity is getting desperate. Head of the Jaeger program, Marshall Pentecost, finds Raleigh and persuades him.
Idris Elba, hot.
Agree.
It's a good sound effect.
My wife agrees. Finds Raleigh and persuades him to return as a pilot. They go to the Jaeger base, the Shatter Dome in Hong Kong, and begin searching for a co-pilot. Jaeger restoration expert Mako Mori is drawn to Raleigh and argues to be given a chance. After seeing
Come on!
Give me a chance! After seeing how well she drifts with Raleigh, Pentecost relents.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. He does that a couple times in this movie. Our heroes plan to use a tactical nuke to collapse the breach. However, during their first test, Mako becomes trapped in the traumatic memory of her family's death and nearly destroys the Shatter Dome, only emerging after the power is pulled.
Great performance from that little girl child. Loved her.
That was a good one. Pentecost grounds Mako, but Raleigh reveals that he knows she is his adoptive daughter.
Drama.
Meanwhile, scientists Newt and Gottlieb try to gather information on the breach.
Ooh, we're a quirky duo of scientists.
Sure are. Newt drifts with a damaged kaiju brain, getting an insight into their creation. Pentecost sends him to black market kaiju part dealer Hannibal Chow in hopes of getting a full brain.
Get your kaiju balls here! There you go.
Man, what do you think kaiju horn powder tastes like?
Oh, heaven. That's all I want.
Unfortunately, during Newt's visit, 2 highly adapted kaiju emerge from the breach and search for him. Using an EMP blast and acid, Otachi and Leatherback destroy 2 of the Jaegers and disable a 3rd, leaving only Gypsy Danger.
Rip.
Working together, Mako and Riley kill the 2 kaiju. Newt and Hannibal attempt to harvest the brain from Otachi, but she's pregnant, and the baby swallows Hannibal. Newt and Gottlieb drift with the baby's brain together and discover that the breach can only be entered by a kaiju. Mako and Raleigh take Gypsy Danger out to seal the breach. Pentecost joins Australian Chuck Hansen on the Striker Eureka as backup.
Yo, I'm Chuck Hansen.
I'm Chuck Hansen. Why don't you take a seat right there?
I'm just thinking of Chris Hansen now.
Say goodbye to my puppy dog.
You took it to a minor.
3 kaiju emerge and threaten to overwhelm the Jaegers, causing the Striker to detonate its nuke early in order to buy time for the Gypsy.
Boom!
Oh no,
Raleigh
they died.
launches Mako's escape pod to safety while he rides a giant kaiju into the breach.
Into the middle of the earth. How did they know scientifically how to prepare him for that? I don't know.
And overloads Gypsy Danger's nuclear reactors, sealing the portal and escaping in the nick.
How did he make it out in time?
It's a good thing that they eject. That the ejector tube was pointed exactly the direction of the...
It always is. It always is.
Yeah, it didn't shoot him directly down.
or just
the precursors.
any other direction.
Sideways. That's what happened in Atlantic Rim. That's the ending for that film.
It's also very lucky that their entire base of operations was at the very end of the tunnel. They're just all there. They're like, shoot, like... We should have spread out a little bit in this entire other world.
Well, in the sequel, we do learn that not all of them went down. But yeah, it is very convenient that they're all just standing there looking at him as it.
It could just explode in like the desert, their desert, and like no one dies, and they're like, okay.
Yeah.
Jordan, as a pitch for one of your Corridor Digital, like kind of rejiggers of a scene. He should just eject from the thing, and it's the kind of like drawn out, like beautiful thing of the bomb's about to go off. He's kind of like headed toward the hole back out to the overworld, and he just like hits the edge, like he misses the hole by like 1 foot. It's just, and then you just get that scene of Mako just like floating on the ocean, just waiting for him.
And then just credits, yeah.
Yep.
That would actually hit a lot harder.
Yeah.
Than the actual ending.
Oh, you mean harder than their like non-kiss?
Their deep stare and forehead touch.
That is my original like complaining about Chinese meddling in movies, because obviously they're gonna kiss, but they don't because there's too much Chinese money backing up this movie.
Is that why?
But also,
yeah, kisses are considered like they're only in adult movies.
It's
like
only
considered
Pacific Rim
scandalous.
job.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
I mean, but I didn't want that. I was happy with it because I didn't want them to kiss, because
Yeah, we
Charlie
didn't like
Hunnam
them
did
together.
not earn it. He didn't lay the groundwork for that kiss.
That is true.
Did you notice in the second film she wasn't even really sad about it? Oh, wait, he wasn't gone. Never mind. I thought he died.
He wasn't dead. He was misplaced somehow. I was vague on that.
He had to go because his planet needed him.
I gotta wonder, what was Charlie Hunnam doing where he was like, nah, I'm not in for Pac Rim 2.
I'm only in for this specific rim. Not the same.
Specific rim.
I'm a one rim kind of guy.
One rim and I'm done for the night. But yeah, you guys are right. This is the most basic white boy characters ever. Him and his brother, just like, cha, bro.
Oh my God.
Right from the beginning.
I was like, what is more broy, this movie or Top Gun? I'm fucking having trouble discerning and deciding on that. It was so... Their lines, too, like in the beginning when they're like, you know what I'm thinking? And the other one's like, I'm in your brain. I know. It's just so corny.
I'm confused about like the actual strength of the machines too, because it feels like they can take any kind of hit. They get pushed through buildings. They get like slammed, all sorts of crazy stuff. But then like an arm will just get ripped off. It'll just be like a pull situation and it comes right off. And you wonder about like how these things are constructed, that they can take like acidic blast to the chest, but like one yank, that's it. Mm-hmm. Arms off.
There's a system built in called the plot convenience matrix.
Yes. And that's the thing too, like with these kinds of films, I know I said that I go to films and I really do try to turn my brain off, but I think in rewatching these, I tried to keep it on a little bit. And immediately all these things started flooding in where, yeah, it becomes a situation where it's hard to really, at least for me, it's hard to really feel any sense of danger or like care for any of these things when there's not too much consistency with it. It doesn't feel like it's rooted in anything real. Like a lot of the cinematography too is cool because it's like ground level POV style stuff, which certainly makes it feel, you feel the scale of it that way. And they introduce like, you know, the lens dirt elements and things that make it feel like it's a camera filming, but then they'll throw you for a loop and do something completely different with the camera. And it's just, there's like, it's a both. So it's hard to know like, oh, this is dangerous, because all of a sudden he pulls out the sword and just chops him in half. And I'm like, start with the sword. Like, you've been shooting him for 20 minutes.
He specifically, this is so funny to me, Charlie Hunnam forgot they had a sword.
Yeah, whoops.
That's so, he literally, they're like, we're gonna die. And then Mako's like, no, we're not. Remember, we have a sword. And
he's like, oh yeah, the most powerful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he just cuts right through. And I'm like, A, everyone should have 2 swords immediately. B, everyone should have spikes on them everywhere, so you can't grab them. Like, if this is the world's leaders coming together to build the most optimal things to save humanity, A, my first thought is, surely we have a better field of candidates than like a Russian guy with bleached hair and his sister. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's got to be the most elite, like top level people in line, and surely the world's governments would fund this. Now, then again, maybe they wouldn't. Maybe it would be an argument ego thing that could happen. I mean, realistically, seeing what's going on in the world now, but I don't know. That kind of stuff takes me out of it, where it's like, oh, now they're a ragtag rebel band. Like, really? This is he blew through the wall in Sydney. The monster blew through the wall in 5 seconds. The world's governments don't pivot and go, whoa, okay, the machines again. The machines again. They just stay back and they're like, I don't know, whatever.
Well, it's tough because when in world the main robot engineer is Guillermo del Toro, and he just wants him to look like Max Fleischer Superman.
Yeah,
like things like that's the problem is they have to look really beautiful. Like they can't. It can't be. It's all form over function. Like got to be cool looking.
It's the same issue that I have with scary movies when it's like when they do something that they shouldn't do for the sake of continuing the plot. Like, don't go in the basement by yourself. My favorite movies are when they do all the things right and they can't escape it. And to me, I guess this is, you're totally right. Like, it has to be visually stunning. Like, and it was beautiful to watch. Yeah. But when I turn my brain back on and I'm not just looking at the visuals, which is what I normally love to do in these movies, then it takes you out of it totally, because my version of the movie would probably be way more boring, where they're all like turtle creatures that just have shells of spikes and friggin' shoot from behind the shell. Like,
they just roll with their spikes.
They just roll with spikes.
That's like the BattleBot principle. Like, every successful BattleBot is just low to the ground, has blades spinning on the ground.
But it's freaking boring. So, I don't know. It's a catch-22 to some degree.
I think I went into this movie not having my brain on, expecting any kind of character cast development. Like, I don't know. As soon as I'm like, oh, are there more than 7 people in this movie? Okay, I'm not gonna be in it for the connection between the characters. So I think going into having less than zero expectations on that, then allowed the visuals of it for me to be like, what? And me also knowing nothing about visual effects at all. Like, you being like, this is dated now, even from 2013. I was watching it and I was like, wow. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I loved it.
And dated being like, we've certainly made improvements to what we're able to do. But that said, like, this is a 2013 film. This is 9 years ago. Super hyper impressive. And this is ILM doing what it does, right? It's like, so many of these shots are full CG. It's kind of crazy. It's almost like an entire like a CG cutscene, the majority of this movie. I'd be curious to know what percentage of it was live action photography. It's probably 15%, 20% or something.
Wow.
It's pretty stunning the amount of stuff they took on and that they were able to execute it at such a high level.
Yeah. It's funny because I kind of fall between the two of you, where I can enjoy to me it's like, sure, some of the technical aspects of the effects have dated in the way that technical effects date. They have like a shelf life, but the production design is so awesome that I'm willing to excuse, like, why does the robot look like this? Because I just go, oh, that Russian robot is so awesome. You couldn't have designed a cooler robot. Yeah. And the kaiju look awesome.
Amazing. They look fucking awesome.
And Guillermo, man, he can design monsters and robots like nobody's business.
Oh yeah.
But for me, the thing I can't turn off my brain for is truly just that I gave negative cares about any of the character stuff. I mean, like, none of it worked for me. So that's where it loses me. And like, in a way where, like, we talk about Godzilla movies where we're usually kind of critical of the character stuff being like one dimensional. In this, there was stuff that was like not even a dimension. Like, we're talking the nether realms of dimensionality with some of this character stuff, like the end where Idris Elba, he sacrifices himself, unnecessary sacrifice sort of, but also another man. He sacrifices himself and another guy who just seems chill with it. And then that guy's father is in the base, and literally there's nothing in his, like, he never acknowledges it. Like, his son died. All you needed was a moment of like him looking sad that his son died. Instead, like, the thing he does is he goes, the clock is stopping. And like, this is like, it's beyond negative character stuff. This goes past, to me, the Godzilla stuff, most of the movies we've watched on this.
But there is a shot of him looking sad, right, when he knows it's going to happen. And obviously it is like kind of dumb that like he seems recovered a little bit later. But it's not as bad as you're making it out to be.
It's as bad as
you wanted. I feel like in Harry Potter, when Cedric Diggory dies and that dad realizes that he's dead, that's like the best father realizing a child has died scene. And I feel like you wanted that kind of commitment. And he wasn't going to give it.
Even if it was less, he just didn't behave for more than like 1 second, like someone who even happened. That's kind of my thing.
did you even know he was his dad until that guy was going off to die? I thought they were friends. And then
he says he's his dad when they get introduced together.
I missed it.
Yeah. But the dynamic doesn't feel like father-son.
No, not at all.
It's funny. It almost feels like he's the grandpa in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Like he's bedridden, and then Charlie comes back with the golden ticket and he's good. It's like, oh, bridge is shut, and he's like, "Way!" Like he's healed again. It's like, come on, grandpa, get a job and help provide for the family.
Ryan, how did you feel about the characters, the emotional arc of things?
I will defend it a little more that it's being totally slammed to the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah,
It's
I didn't
not
think it was
great.
worse than most. Like, I would not say that every Godzilla film is better than it.
No,
in
I wouldn't either.
Sense
I
of the
wouldn't
word.
either.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it beats the snot out of the 2014 Godzilla.
Was that the one with Kyle Chandler? No, that was the most recent one.
The one with Aaron Tyler Johnson and Bryan Cranston.
Oh, yeah.
Ryan, I'm genuinely asking this. Does it?
I think so, because obviously the stuff with Bryan Cranston works a little bit better, but they make the awful choice to jettison him halfway through. Whereas at least with this, you have the through lines of Raleigh, Pentecost, and Mako having some sort of relationship dynamic.
I mean, if we consider Raleigh's as a net zero for me, the only thing that we care about with him happens in the first 10 minutes of the movie, and then from there he's just a guy he's just standing on the screen. He's not doing or feeling. I feel nothing for anything that's happening with him. Mako's like kind of half interesting, and that's kind of it for me. I don't know. I feel like we watched very different movies. I was very surprised how much I thought this stuff didn't work.
Me too. I mean, I made the mistake of looking. I saw the review. I mean, again, I saw it when it was in theaters. I forgot all about it. I saw the reviews before I watched it again, and I saw like Rotten Tomatoes was like 75% or something. And so I set the bar there. I shouldn't have. I know better than this. My favorite movie experiences are when I have no to low expectations. And I went in with like medium high. And yeah, it just didn't hit for me. Like the scene where Charlie Hunnam's taking off his shirt.
Oh, that was hilarious.
And Mako's like looking at him and
creeping.
And like we all do when we're looking at shirtless men and they look at us, we go, "Whoa," and run behind a door and slam it. Like, I was like, come on, we get it. She's into him. Like, we don't need that. And then he like kind of struts up to the thing, flexing his abs and shuts the door. That kind of stuff, man. I can't do it. Mainly because I'm jealous of his body, but also because story-wise.
As my wife said, Mako was high-grade horny.
High grade horny.
For him.
I don't know. Like, I don't know if when Idris died, it got me just a tiny bit just because it was Idris and I like him so much. Or if there was like, I think of any of the connections they were trying to make. I'm not saying the Mako and Idris one was like fully successful, but that it was like the tiny littlest thread that existed that they did. That was like, okay, like the Charlie, like, and then we got to talk about Charlie Day too, because
I was gonna say, and that's the other thing that I like is the Charlie Day British guy relationship is charming and fun to me. I think they have a nice little friendship.
It made me feel like I was watching Van Helsing whenever they were. I don't know why. I haven't seen that movie in years, but something about them on screen, I was like, I gotta rewatch Van Helsing. But why are they in this movie? Like, I didn't get why they were there.
No, Ryan, we're just gonna differ. We're just gonna differ on this.
Apparently.
They didn't work at all.
Yeah, I didn't think they worked together.
No.
I didn't think Charlie Day should have been cast in the film, and then to find out he was the lead villain in the next one was beyond.
Hey, spoiler.
Whoa, what?
What?
It felt like they were there as the comedic relief or something, but it felt like they belonged in a different film. And it also, to me, kind of felt very formulaic. They're like, what kind of combo could we have for the science side that would kind of service this through line? And again, I am such a big Always Sunny fan, but Charlie Day as Charlie Day in Pacific Rim wasn't the right fit for this.
No. It felt like they were trying to be in Ghostbusters.
I tend to agree.
I was like, is this Ghostbusters? Are they hanging with Melissa? Like, what's going on here?
I think it was character-wise, I didn't believe them. And that's my thing with acting. Like, that's the number one thing, and why I think Leonardo DiCaprio is so talented, like, and Tom Hardy too. When I look in their eyes when they're acting, I can see that they're not thinking about anything other than the moment, which is like, you don't get that with comedic actors, because again, it's like the bit, it's like the back and forth. It's not so character centered, and that's where I felt it was lacking. Like, the only person that I believed in their role was Idris, as like a commanding presence and the no nonsense attitude.
Who cared about what was going on.
Yeah, and that made me connect to him, because I believed that he believed it. And I was like, oh, okay, so I'm with you. But everybody else, Charlie Hunnam, I was like, is he thinking about how he looks right now? What is he thinking about?
Yeah,
because he's not.
And Charlie Day did not have like again, it's silly, but it didn't seem like he had the acting chops for like this role in this film. Like, he was just like,
he's Charlie Day.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, he that felt like a casting. It was writing and casting, because ultimately Charlie Hunnam, I thought the Charlies were the biggest problem. Both Charlies were probably the biggest problem. But like, in both cases, it's some combination of performance, casting, and writing. I don't think either one was given much, but some of it's casting. Yeah.
Well, the Charlie line when he, expresses his love to her before they go on this big thing is, all these years I've spent living in the past, I never really thought about the future. Until now, I never really had great timing. It's just like, it's too much. It's like, why are they, I never really had great time. Like, cut the weird, not joke, but none of it. It would have been hard to say that line to begin with, and then add in him just kind of phoning it in, and it led to no connection.
Interesting. See, I was perceiving this as if everyone was working towards having this over the top, like, accessing like the lineage of these movies as over the top and willing to be ostentatious.
Really?
And fitting into that paradigm. And I know that is hurt by how bland Charlie Hunnam is.
Yeah.
But I think visually, with like the bright gels and the lights in Hong Kong, everything is like brightly colored, really boom in your face, bold. Everyone except Charlie Hunnam is hitting, if not like a huge note, like a pulpy note, like a very, like, this is like a recognizable archetype. And I think it was all meant to fall under that house. And so that's how I'm perceiving it, is like they're all trying to access that way forward. But it seems like that was not coming across to you guys, except maybe partly to Joanna, based on
that's what I thought they were going for. But I just didn't think it was very good or funny.
But I think it was confusing. Yeah, because then, like, there were certain parts of it, like, he gets out of the pod at the end, not a bruise or scratch on his goddamn bone-structured face, not a fucking scratch on him. And then that, like, she's like, oh no, he's dead. And then the, like, hot hero comes back to life with a joke. You're squeezing me too hard, I can't breathe. Like, that, it didn't feel like they were playing at that. It felt like they just wrote corny lines. Like, they were existing in some kind of universe there. So the Hong Kong part, I agree. Parts of it looked beautiful. It made me want to, like, rewatch Blade Runner 2049 and all these colorful, projects. But then it was mixed with this, like, so classic, boring lines.
Yeah, Charlie and the other dude are the only ones who felt like they were leaning into that vibe. And so that was like the dichotomy between the two things, which is why I didn't feel like it was like,
I was confusing,
two disjointed puzzle pieces, like trying to jam it together. And it just,
but I don't know, even with like
to me,
the Australian guy, he's playing like the cheesy rival character to the hill. Like, why is Idris's office like a Zen garden? Like, all this stuff.
Actually, also the Russian guys too. That's fair. The Russian people too. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah,
it all suggests to me that it's purposeful and supposed to be highly dynamic and pulpy, like, all the way through.
I just didn't feel like they were all in on the joke, and I feel like to successfully pull it off as pulpy, they have to be in on it, kind of, right?
Especially the lead.
I guess there is a thin. It's not meant to be cheesy. It's meant to be pulpy. They were trying to hit this thin line where it didn't go all the way to like Evil Dead levels of ridiculousness, but it also wasn't supposed to be like serious and believable in a straight sort of way. They were trying to hit the pulp line, and I admit stuff fell off of that, but I thought they were hitting it enough that I could see it all seemed so intentional, and it mostly worked on that line for me.
Definitely Ron Perlman too. Honestly.
Yeah, well,
that whole aesthetic.
Yeah, that's my, for me, he was the one who hit it, and granted, some of it helps that like his character was
his costume
entirely. Oh, his costume was great.
Yeah, awesome.
He just wasn't carrying any sort of story load in any sort of way. He just he was just a breath of fresh air for me. But then I don't want to hate so much. I don't want to bring this down. But like, to me, it's like the scene where he got eaten by the fetus, or the baby kaiju was like, look, I like pulpy movies. For me, it just, and this is subjective, because it's like, I felt like it was aiming for that. I didn't go into this thinking, I want Saving Private Ryan with monsters. I went into it being like, this is going to be a pulpy, fun movie. I just want to see monsters and kaiju fight, and robots and kaiju. And like, that was mostly quite good, I thought. Like, robot hitting a kaiju with a ship using it like a baseball bat. Great. Like,
it looked fucking awesome.
That stuff worked for me. That's the thing I remembered from seeing it the first time. But for me, it's like, you have a scene, the kaiju eats Ron Perlman, but it's a scene between Ron Perlman and Charlie Day that actually wasn't fulfilling any sort of story purpose other than killing time so that the monster could eat him. I mean, it just didn't, the scene didn't work for me. So then like, and it wasn't funny or fun. So then when it eats him and you go, oh, that was all just so they could talk for a while so we could be surprised by him getting eaten, it kind of just makes that moment fall flat. And like, this hilarious guy getting eaten by a baby kaiju we thought was dead should be really fun, and it just kind of wasn't working for me.
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna convince you to come over to my side, but can you at least see where I'm coming from? Where if all this stuff that wasn't working for you was working, it would be more enjoyable.
I can totally see that too.
Yeah, I just think again that Guillermo should have maybe told a few more of the actors at the beginning, kind of like what we're doing here, because they were all coming at it at like, I'm playing the hero, but it looked fucking incredible. I thought it was beautiful. I thought it looked awesome. As I had that thought, I thought, oh God, I've been doing this podcast too long that I've now transitioned over to the side. We're in a film like this. I'm like, wow, but the monsters look beautiful.
but this is the highest level of that. I mean, again, this to me, like the production design of this is at the highest level of probably anything we've watched for this podcast. It's pretty hard to beat Guillermo del Toro production design.
Yeah.
And like when he's falling into that, anytime they're kind of opening they're falling deeper into the earth. I feel like they have, what's that thing in King Kong where it's not Middle Earth, but it's
the Hollow Earth in the new movies.
Like similar to how I'm always like, hell yeah, Hollow Earth. This too. Anytime they're opening up the earth and it's beautiful and bright, I thought that was so cool looking.
And it's so ambitious to do so much underwater too, because that just opens up a whole another world, especially for the visual effects teams of, how do we do this? Like, this hasn't really been seen, at least not in my experience, of like these giant mechs fighting now underwater, kicking up all the dust and debris, also getting all like the atmospheric bubbles and the push pull. Mm-hmm. Is it the first one? It's the first one where because they're now all blending together. The bomb goes off. Yeah, when they blow up the bridge.
The water vacuum.
Dude, that was incredible. The expansion of like the gas and pushing all the water through, the beat, and then the pullback. I watched that like 4 or 5 times. That was spectacular. And that must have took a ton of research to dial that in, because that was really, really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think even in the beginning, like, well, first that shot with the fishermen on a boat. I'm like a sucker anytime anything is like leaning into perfect storm for a second, some big waves, all that shit. My dream is to like play someone trapped on a fishing boat in a big storm. It seems so fun. But I love that. And then that shot towards the beginning, when it's like that kid and father and they're in the snow and the thing falls. I feel like we didn't get many of those, but setting up in that way, I was like, wow, this is going to look good. I'm very excited for it.
Yeah. I really like the kaiju. I do wish there was more color and body plan variety. They're all like vaguely dinosaurian, and most of them are like dark blue. But apart from that, I love everything else about them. I like the knife head is like Giron from the Gamera movies, which you guys loved. And Otachi is my favorite with the bright green skin and the big inflating acid pouch. Mm-hmm. I loved all the.
And I feel
Otachi
like the dinosaur
scenes.
aspect, they did kind of like keep tying them back though, right? Like, weren't they like dinosaurs had two brains or something? Weren't they kind of?
Yeah, that's
the
dual brain theory is in this too from that.
Yeah, so I feel like
DBT, the return of DBT.
So maybe you guys could explain it to me. The way I understood it is that these are the dinosaurs now.
That's what I took
right?
from it.
I couldn't believe it when I heard it. I just want to make sure that.
Yeah, Charlie Day says that the dinosaurs were the test run for kaiju.
So they came through. They came through as long.
Ryan's like, it's false. That's not how they're.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you would ever connect your brain to a kaiju.
Ryan.
No.
Only Ryan. I thought so. Sam and I are like, absolutely fucking not, never in my
I
goddamn
wouldn't
life.
connect my brain to anyone.
No,
You
right,
gotta
lone
stay out
wolf,
of there.
right, lone wolf. I am Sam.
Not even your wife.
Next question.
I will say too that the animation departments for the kaiju in particular, is absolutely stellar. Like, I have incredibly limited experience with animations, and the little experience that I do have and the stuff that we've done at Corridor, and like, it is so intricate and so involved. And for them to not only design these creatures with their own bone and muscle structures, but to have them move so fluidly in such like a beautiful way, that is what stood out to me. The animations of these things were spectacular. And when you're talking about something on this scale, like all these departments working in tandem together, you've got the actual environment artists, you've got the animation artists, you've got the simulation artists, and all working in tandem on such a scale like this is so freaking ambitious, and it would make me just want to quit. I don't think I'd want to do it. I'd be like, the scope is too large. Like, can we not do this? And I don't even understand.
To the credit of, and I think I want to say this because there's a contrast between this and the second one, where to the credit of this movie, and again, it's design, it's animation, it's visual effects, execution, but like, there are so many good decisions made that they class up the action, and the way the monsters move, the way the robots move, it completely changes. Like, it doesn't feel like Transformers. It's a different thing. The design of the robots is that kind of like 40s, like, again, like Superman thing. So it's they're more like Iron Giant, old fashioned robots. The monsters, they don't feel like a ripoff of Godzilla. They don't feel like they feel like their own thing. It doesn't feel like Power Rangers at any point. The second one kind of, in a weird way, because they make, also, by the way, backing up to what Jordan said, like the choices of like shooting it from the ground, for the most part, it's all filmed in a way where it's like, if we actually had a real camera on this thing, this is the kind of shot we could get, which I think is a really good decision. And I know that there's always a question, and they break the rule in the first a bunch of times, but like, generally it just kind of classes it up, where like in the second, there are some shots where you're like, and it's a cool shot and it's well executed technically, but it kind of feels like large scale Power Rangers. It's like there are just so many kind of like classy choices that just take such great craftsmanship from so many people in the first one to kind of elevate it.
Can I ask too, just because I have no concept, like for visual effects for this, like what's the timing to create one scene?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm sure they had thousands of artists on from all these different houses. It's hard to say because, I mean, you're talking like, I was watching some of the breakdowns too. ILM did a really cool breakdown on YouTube. It's like 3.5 minutes. But I mean, you're talking about, the entire city being digital. Like, it's every building built and designed. That's every light source being created and placed. And they have some procedural methods for city building where they could do it a lot faster than like manually doing it. But seeing as these are real cities, being accurate to the cityscape is very important. So there's a whole environment team that is dedicated to just that. Then everything that is destroyed needs to be built to be destroyed. It's not like you can make a model of something and then just blow it up and it'll look good. Like, you need to design the interior of the structure of every single one that is destroyed to collapse in a very specific way. All of that is art directed. And then you've got the actual, like the glass simulations coming from the building. You've got the dust and particle simulations, which are all separate. You've got the animation teams building the actual, the modeling department is making the thing. The animators are animating the thing. You've got muscle simulations on top of that. Then you've got the actual shading, the lighting department, the compositing. Like, it's so massive in scope. And then it just also interacts with water, which is one of the most laborious things to simulate, because the way water works in simulations is you've got millions of particles that are all moving and interacting with collision objects that are then meshed over and given like transparency and reflection and refraction to look like water. All of that in one shot. Like, I know we were joking, before we started recording, I think it was about, we did Saw Rated G at Corridor. And there was one shot that I did where it was like, we replaced the needle pit with a simulation of Legos. And that was 23 frames. And I think that took me like 2 days, 2.5 days or something like that. But you talk about, hey, this was 23 frames of just a person scooting Legos out of the way. You look at one of these shots, and it's like, good Lord, I can't even imagine the scope. And like 60% of these shots are all CG like that. It's just beyond comprehension. And I don't know how many computers they have, because they must have run through thousands of them.
But this is all helpful to hear. I feel like when you see credits at the end of a movie, right? And it's like minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes of everyone participating in making it happen. And it's awesome. But you're like, holy fuck.
It puts it in perspective, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's also, I don't know on this one what the breakdown was, but my guess is that a whole lot of that was already happening before they even shot it. At a certain point, it's actually, these movies become more like animated movies with some live action stuff, as opposed to live action movies with VFX.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's very much the case. Like, the hangar shot where Charlie Hunnam walks into the hangar for the first time, and the camera's like pushing him behind him, and we see the scope of this warehouse of robots. Of course, all of that is digital, all the scaffolding and rafters and everything. Only the ground and the people are real. And so that's so they can keep those reflections. You're getting a lot of green spill into the reflections on the ground so that they can actually key out, the elements behind the reflection of the people and put the scaffolding and like all that stuff that goes into it that you don't think about, I think is a testament to how far we've come. And this is 2013. This is 9 years ago. So computing power was nowhere near, because we're on an exponential turn with what we're able to do. So yeah, man, it's like, it boggles my mind when I see this stuff, and it kind of gives me like a tiny headache, because like I can't imagine how many man hours went into this.
It's always good for me to get a reappreciation of what goes into intense digital effects like this, because I'm a big practical effects fetishist. Back in the day when there were no practical effects anymore, I was constantly like, these darn CGI artists. But it's definitely just as appreciable a craft, and so much work and passion goes into it. And like you said, often very time crunch. They don't get to see their families. They don't get paid enough. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy that there's not a bigger union for visual effects artists. And I'm wondering when that's going to happen, because it kind of feels like it's overdue.
It starts now. It starts here.
Yeah, the fight begins. You look at any Marvel film, any of these films, like without visual effects,
they ain't happening.
It's nothing. It's like, but you could go the practical route, because I'm also a huge fan of special effects. I think it's a tale as old as time. The perfect marriage is visual effects supplementing special effects, unless it can't be done with anything but visual effects. And a lot of this stuff, you could use miniatures, I guess. I don't know how they used to do it in the old school films, but I think that'd be really cool. Like the supplementation of that and this to where it still feels grounded, because the minute, and we have kind of a saying in visual effects, you reintroduce the imperfections, because we can make everything perfect. We can make everything super smooth, super glossy, super fantastic. It's the reintroduction of the imperfections that ground the shots. And when they're doing camera moves that are physically impossible, the shot doesn't mean anything anymore, because anything could happen. So is it dangerous? Is it not? I don't think it really matters, because look, the camera's moving at 3,000 miles per hour, whizzing around at 360. It's like, whatever. It's not grounded anymore. There's no banana for scale. It doesn't mean anything to us. So it needs that. It needs that real always in my opinion.
Or at least a banana.
Or at least a banana. Put a banana. How hard is that?
At least a banana.
Every visual effects shot should have a banana.
There's a hand just coming into that corner of the frame, into frame, holding a banana in every shot. It's a different corner.
As much as I would love to dive more into this, we do need to move on to our sequel here.
No.
So
okay, I'm just kidding.
as Godzillavangelists, it is our holy duty to assign each movie its proper place in Godzilla heaven, hell, or purgatory. Or I guess in this case, Jaeger, heaven, hell, or purgatory. With heaven being the best, hell being the worst, purgatory being in the middle.
Are we assigning the first one right now?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to start?
No. I was kind of going to chat out number 2, see where my thoughts landed on both, and then vote. So somebody else start.
I'll start.
Yeah.
I think that the movie, and I've said my piece on it, I think it's a production design and visual effects heaven, no question. And I think it is, to me, a story hell. I think it's like a D- script. And that's just me, but that's how I feel. It averages out to a purgatory. However, I don't particularly like it beyond, I can just kind of more appreciate, but I don't really enjoy it. So that's where I stand.
I'm in the exact same boat as you for the same reasons. And for me, it's like, it's always frustrating knowing the man hours that go into making something like this, that they don't spend more time on the script. And I don't know to what extent it's like the finished script is different and then producers get involved. I know there's a lot of that kind of stuff where everyone wants to have their voice heard and everyone wants to go, that was my idea. That kind of ego stroking stuff. But it does blow my mind that you're talking probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of man hours going into this thing. Like, let's spend a little more time making sure that this arc is right, and especially making sure the casting is right. Because, like, I think Bryan Cranston was talking about the audition process. And I used to audition as a kid. Like, I used to do acting when I was younger. And I would always go, yeah, I did, yeah.
So did
Send
Joanna.
us your headshot.
Yeah, legit. But I would always go into the auditions just, I would never really think through what I was presenting. I would just kind of learn the lines and then present them in what I thought was funny or like, however. And I heard one of his interviews where he's like, prepare a character, prepare someone that you think belongs in this world that is totally yours. And your focus in an audition should be presenting that character as an option for them to choose. There's no like association with, they didn't pick me. They didn't pick me. They didn't want me. It's like, they didn't want my rendition of this character for this film. And to me, like the casting side that kind of drags this closer to hell, so to speak, is Charlie Hunnam presented kind of bland vanilla. And then Charlie Day presented goofy, quirky, pulpy vibes. And they were just kind of casting from all sorts of different spectrums and mashing it together in this like marshmallow mashed potato thing that I don't want to eat because it's everything. And I want a specific type of meal, not this conglomeration that doesn't sit well. So for me, it's like purgatory, but it's like hanging on to purgatory.
I'm going to give it a heaven. I think that there are flaws for sure in how the casting came together, and the script could have been stronger for sure. But I see it all as an intentional pulpy structure, and it works under that for me, except for Charlie Hunnam. And I'm willing to forgive him in exchange for, these beautiful monster fights and some fun character interactions, in my opinion. So it's not a strong heaven, but I will put it in heaven. I enjoyed watching it.
He's the plus one. At the heaven, yeah, gets in on a plus one.
Yeah.
I'm teetering, and I'm going to fully decide after we chat about number 2, because I'm teetering on high purgatory or maybe even low rung heaven, which feels crazy. But I think that, this is one of the first times that I was really just happy to be watching the monster fights at all points of it, and the world building that they did, not with the characters, but just kind of the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I know it's probably been done before, but having them, the duo action, very satisfying.
It was satisfying to watch.
It's a cool
very satisfying. Very satisfying, all of it. And it's definitely, I would rewatch this movie again. I definitely would. I feel like that's, sometimes a qualifier for me that I always talk about. Some of them I wouldn't even open a DVD case if someone chucked it at my head. And yeah, I'm going to have to chat through this. But I also think too, and I'll get into this more with the second one, something about the them trying to have to figure out what the monsters were doing, why they were there, was a more appealing plot point to me than like, oh, there's evil humans, which I guess then it translated to it's Charlie Day, he's the whatever, but like that was too convoluted. I kind of like when it's more like we don't really have the answer and we're just trying to survive and figure it out at the same time. Yeah. Which again, I felt like, oh my God, I've been watching these movies far too long to be differentiating in this manner. Yeah, so I'm cusp, and let's chat a little more, and then I'll make my official decision.
Well, one thing about that too is, you know, I think Charlie Day's character says something about the fact that they tried to enter this world before as the dinosaurs, so long necks and velociraptors and all that fun stuff, and we terraformed it with carbon dioxide or something. Like our pollution terraformed the planet so they could enter. Is that right? Is that what they're saying?
Yeah.
That to me feels like that feels like a bit of a shoehorned message of like, hey, dum-dum, clean up the planet, which I could get behind, we should, but I don't know. It felt like shoehorned of like, humanity, we ruined the planet, and now instead of coming back as a long neck, he's coming back as a 70-story, you know, acid-spitting world eater. Shoot, I'd watch that against monsters.
Same.
Pacific Rim Resurgence, or whatever it's called.
Uprising, I think.
Uprising. 10 years after Pacific Rim, Pentecost's son Jake makes a living selling contraband and Jaeger parts on the black market. During a botched salvage, someone steals an expensive part before he can, and he tracks the person to a warehouse. They turn out to be a teenage girl named Amara, who's building her own tiny unlicensed Jaeger. The official
Scrapper.
Jaeger.
Wait, what was it? Scrappy?
Scrappy. Scrapper. Scrappy Doo.
Scrappy Doo.
The official Jaeger force, the Pan-Pacific Defense Corps, followed Jake and attempts to arrest him and Amara. They escape in a little Jaeger named Scrapper, which manages to evade capture for a while before eventually being stopped.
So cute.
Jake's sister, Mako, offers to drop charges if the two of them join PPDC, and they agree. Jake is assigned to teach alongside the hard-assed Nate Lambert, while Amara struggles to keep up with other teen trainees. They learn that
I would say firm-ass, but...
Right, it sounds like you're pitching like a Disney Plus TV series for kids.
I mean, we'll get into that. They learn that the PPDC is threatened by the Shao Corporation's plan to deliver drone-controlled Jaegers to countries around the world. Mako asks Jake and Lambert to provide honor guard and a new Gypsy Avenger as she travels to a meeting with Shao, where she plans to veto the drones. Man, we're only halfway through. Tragically, a rogue Jaeger Obsidian Fury attacks and destroys her helicopter, leaving the planet. Thank you.
I want one sound effect for this.
Yeah, that was my catch.
Leaving the plan to move forward. Obsidian escapes into the ocean. Meanwhile, Dr. Gottlieb approaches Newt, who now works for the Shao Corporation. He asks for help studying the explosive properties of kaiju blood, but Newt refuses. Following a hint from Mako, Gypsy Avenger finds a secret Jaeger construction site in Siberia and battles Obsidian there. They defeat the villain and find that there is no human pilot, but instead a kaiju brain apparently grown by humanity.
That's the kaiju brain. And it's like, thing. Holder. Okay.
It's like I'm there.
As the Shao drones are delivered, they are also found to have kaiju brains inside, and simultaneously begin destroying every shatter dome around the world. Gottlieb teams up with Newt to stop the drones, but discovers that Newt is possessed by the kaiju creating precursors, and is in fact behind all the villainy.
In the best Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde performance of a lifetime! Of a lifetime!
Gottlieb and Li Shao shut down the drones eventually, but not before they release 3 kaiju from a new breach, and Newt escapes. Shao teams up with PPDC to repair enough Jaegers for the surviving pilots to use. The Jaegers initially beat the kaiju, but Newt uses tiny fixer kaiju to meld the bodies into one living mega kaiju. Once again, Gypsy Avenger is the last Jaeger standing and must make a desperate launch into the stratosphere to stop the mega kaiju. Jake and Amara pilot Gypsy into the monster, slicing it at half, and escape at the last second with help from Shao and Scrapper.
Yay.
Yeah, I didn't like this one. For one thing, there's no monsters until the last third of the movie.
What the fuck? I thought we were watching Transformers. Not that I ever seen it, but
it's amazing how much different it felt with no monsters for the first, again, like I would say half, but you could say the first 2/3. It felt like a totally different kind of movie, and plus a lot of the things we had talked about being pros of the first one are different enough visually in this that it completely skews much more Transformers in its vibes.
So I wasn't wrong in feeling that way because I'd never seen Transformers, but I was like, I think this is what it is.
Yeah, it was much closer.
They are Transformers totally going after that Transformers money.
It's less fun to have the robots fighting the robots.
I agree.
It's less fun.
And a lot of the fights were in broad daylight, whereas the ones in Pacific Rim were at night, which I think is more fun and atmospheric. Anyway, I was on board for the opening premise. I'm like, oh, this is cool. What's his name?
The lead, John
Boyega as like a fly-by-night smuggler or whatever is a really cool idea. I like the idea of there being rogue Jaegers running around.
They just, when they started with that though, they then just so quickly got back to, and now we're at the formal military base and we're back on the same page. Like, would have been cool if they'd pushed it further.
But yeah, once we were back in the military thing, I was like, uh-oh.
You were like, why are there so many children here? These kids are 12.
That was a big
These
red
kids are
flag.
12.
Like, as soon as I saw the kids, I was like, fuck.
Oh.
Where were the adults?
And as a lead, I liked John Boyega so much more than Charlie Hunnam. I immediately connected with the character. I liked him a lot. But man, dude, when they introduced who stole a flux capacitor or whatever it's called, the thing, and who's building their own robot from scratch. It's a 12-year-old.
Right.
And I'm like, stop, man. Like,
and like it wasn't even that she was like bad it just was like, it just is not right.
Exactly.
Like, why? Yeah. She's too young.
I thought she did great from an acting perspective. But yeah, it's too young. It's the same thing that you see in a lot of films where they're going for like the younger audience to like bring them up. And it's this idea of like the youth have their opportunity to succeed and they bring it home. But what we're talking about is the fate of the world. What we're talking about is every world government agency realizing that they closed the breach, but now let's up our military prowess and get
children.
More pilots? Is that what they had? They all die, and then it's like, we've only got 4 kids. That's it. Put them in the multi-billion-dollar machines to protect Earth. And it's like, surely there's others.
It felt like these kids should be in Spy Kids. Like, Spy Kids would have been appropriate if we were watching that. But, like, it also felt like the age, like, there should have been an in-between age. Like, they were 17, they were maybe late 20s, or, like, where were the 24-year-olds? Like, that's, I don't know.
Right.
They all died.
Yeah,
and that whole message of, like, the youth replacing the elders doesn't work if the elders are, like, 28.
What if it was Clint Eastwood?
That would be amazing if he was in this movie. Yeah.
The first thing that when he appeared... Oh, go ahead.
The most convenient plot point in this movie is, like, why is Gypsy Danger the only Jaeger that's not destroyed? Why are they the only pilots that survived? It would have been so easy to come up with some excuse, some simple plot point. Like, they could have been away, still up at that northern base, when the
They also
drone
could've
struck, and then at least it wouldn't have just been blind luck at like why these people are around.
Also, we didn't get to see Mako piloting at all. I was like, come on, at least like let her fucking get back in the saddle there. I don't know.
Yeah,
but at least we got one kid dying kind of brutally, right?
Wait, which kid?
Have that.
Just the arm.
Which kid died? I'm trying to remember.
The
South Asian fella.
Oh, he died.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one who he kind of looked like a little bit like an Indian Jerry Seinfeld.
I can see that.
Of course, my wife said when that happened, she's like, of course, it's always the brown kids that get it.
It's, you know what's terrible is we had the same thought. I watched this with Mac, and she had that same thought where she was like, and the moment he showed up, she called it. She's like, he's going to die. And that is not cool.
Oh, no, I didn't think he was going to die. And then when he did, it was like, yeah, brutal. Just so many teens.
Yeah.
Yeah. It felt like a teen movie. It felt like, what's it, Maze Runner? What's that? It follows teens. Mm-hmm. And it's hard for me to ever get into that. It just feels like, again, there's no danger now. It's teens. You're not really going to see kids get killed in this PG-13 movie or whatever, like
except that one. We got one. They threw us a bone.
Yeah, man. As soon as that plot line evolved, I thought, crap. Because tonally, I actually preferred the second one. I felt like it leaned more heavily into the pulpy vibe. Like it didn't take itself as seriously, which I appreciated. But then, to me, it devolved probably lower than the first
I think
one.
too. The girl and John like did have that kind of brotherly, sisterly chemistry. Like,
yeah, they had really nice couple moments, and then they kill off Mako because I can't have any good characters.
right. God, why didn't they keep her?
You know that she just didn't want to be involved.
Well, yeah,
yeah.
That's like the real.
But Ryan, he lost one sister and he gained another. Okay, that's what they were doing there.
The one line that did get me at the end that I was like, come on, let's not do this, is when she needs to detach. And he's going to catch her, just the perfect parallel of the dad catching her here or whatever. And he's like, you have to let go. And it's like, okay, I already get it. And he's like, I'll catch you, I promise. And I'm like, okay, you didn't have to spoon feed it. Like, I'm not sitting in a high chair
watching
watching
didn't.
This. Yeah,
I'm your dad in this situation.
Like your dead dad didn't.
Yeah. Play that dead dad memory again.
Yeah.
Quick, 2 seconds before. Yeah. Also, though, the science of that part, okay, they're following the wind. She lets go. He catches her. How do they then successfully crawl back like 10 feet into Scrapper? That made no sense. How did they not fall out? How did they not, the wind take them away?
Actually, I can explain this one.
I need help with that.
Okay. Yeah. So built into Scrapper was this thing called a plot convenience matrix.
Oh, I love those. Yeah, that's from the first one, right?
Yeah.
I love that
It's a standard part of a Jaeger.
I forgot. You're right, Sam. I forgot.
To your point, though, it was funny that they're falling and you see them kind of like sitting in like a hallway of Scrapper, but like loose, like they're not strapped in. Right. And I was like, are they just going to get like splattered around the inside of this robot when it hits this? It's not going to be a smooth landing.
No, very violent.
Okay. But also, low-key, did Scrapper had some incredible landings in this movie. Rolling, and then nailed the landing every time. It really made me feel like Power Rangers whenever he was going off.
To me, Scrapper looked so much like a Ninja Turtle. I was thinking Ninja Turtles the whole way.
As much as I did not want to like Scrapper, because I was like seeing like this is the Bumblebee BB-8 character. I did. It was cute.
How can you not like a little version of a robot? the little robot that could.
Yeah, seeing it in contrast to the big one was really cool.
Yeah.
Like, put it in perspective a little bit, because I remember thinking at first, I was like, how is she, operating such a big machine? Again, banana for scale. And then it ran out, and then at the feet of the actual big one, it was pretty cool concept. And some of the simulation work there was incredible. Like on the beach when it was running and like landed in the sand and all the sand kicked up and settled and stuff like that. You saw the improvements even just, I think it was 2018, the second one. Mm-hmm. So 5 years difference, and you saw some incredible strides visually too.
It's funny you say that, because actually, like, my thought was now the design, some of the design and kind of big picture decisions visually of the first, I think, are classier and more kind of mind blowing. But like, my thought was, one, technically the second one's actually very high level.
Mm-hmm. Nothing
Nothing is like, oh, this is shoddy. Like, it's done at a high level. at least on the technical side. But then too, I kept thinking, boy, this feels like so long ago because nobody's spending, nothing's getting made at this level. Like I actually thought the technical side of a lot of the visual effects are much higher than like your current MCU movie or like, it was, I felt like, like no one's spending money like this anymore. And probably because of movies like this not doing well.
Honestly, it was, not to switch IP here, but it was King Kong versus Godzilla. That was like, that one blew my mind because they combined some of the most difficult techniques on such a massive scale. Fur simulation with water interaction on a boat during a fight that's animated, like all these different things that would typically like feed back in on itself in a simulation and break it. They found really clever ways to make it all possible. So it's like, this felt like the precursor to doing something like that, which is the logical next step. But this compared to the first one, the skin shading of the monsters, like the idea of called subsurface scattering. Skin, it's not just a reflective, material. It's light is entering. That's why, like in the ears, you see them red when they're backlit because the light is transmitting through the actual skin. It's taking light in and scattering that light throughout the skin source. And you see it looks much cleaner and much more realistic in the 2018 sequel than it does in the 2013 original, and that's because of the computing advancements that are made in that regard. So like those things were certainly a nod and like heck yeah. But again, it's like packaged kind of lazily in my opinion in like this preteen coming of age story that I don't feel anything for. I just get annoyed. I'm like, you don't have more than 6 trained pilots? That's it? And then the ejection, like total miniature tangent here, but for me, the end, when they eject from the thing, I think it's John gets ejected out of the top of this thing. And then like 6 airbags open up around the perimeter. And he just drops from like literally 50 stories high onto an airbag and is good. Like, no, your brain would be mush. You'd be absolute mush. And then it like shows it again and it's all practical and like the bags are deflating. I'm like, I'm sorry, man. Give him a parachute, give him something to... You can't handle that. Nobody can handle that.
Oh, that's to quickly revert back to the first one. When his pod is coming out of the middle of the earth and there's a nuclear explosion and the pod can withstand that. Like, what the fuck? How? Yeah. How can that little glass window take all of that on?
I mean, there's a reason.
Again, plot matrix.
There's a reason the pods are shaped like coffins.
Well, that's true.
It's a one-stop shop.
Yeah. One-stop shop.
No, I had the same thought about the pod ejection angles in the first one where it's like, I wish he just barely missed the opening. In this one, like when the big beefer monster is taking out all the robots and they go, eject. Like, I really wanted someone ejects like right straight into the monster's mouth.
That'd be hilarious. Yeah.
Like, give us that.
Yeah.
If we hadn't had the teens in it, maybe we could have gone for it.
That did happen in Godzilla King of the Monsters. The pilots ejected into Rodan's mouth, which is great.
I will say, whoever for this one, I feel like in movie 1, they were like, their feet are attached, their feet are locked in. Whoever in this movie was like, their feet are not attached. They get to do the flips, the jumps, they spin backwards. It looked, again, awesome. And I feel like there were even more swords. And I was here for all the swords and all the kung fu that was going on inside those robots. Mm-hmm.
It's just the robots look less cool. And I'm not that into robots to begin with. And there were no monsters. I kept looking at my wife to like, where are the monsters?
I liked the red robot. I thought she looked cool.
Yeah,
the other ones.
Also, the kaiju worship thing is so funny to me. That made me laugh. I was like, these things show up and just decimate cities, and you're worshiping them. It's like such a weird, but it as crazy as it sounds, it's more believable today than ever that would happen. that would turn into like a cult thing. You know what I mean? That people would be like, oh no, they're actually here to save us. But still, it did make me laugh. I'm like, oh, accept your salvation. And these giant monsters are basically just decimating and destroying every major city.
I mean, I would be a kaiju worshiper for sure.
So. You already are. I mean,
I'm actually a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy theorist that they're out there. There are kaiju-ish space lasers all over.
Kaiju-ish space.
And
that's quality.
Bill Gates.
Okay,
Bill
Kanye.
Gates.
Also, we got to talk about Charlie Day. Mm-hmm. Like, who, what? Because, right, they had to have some kind of room of like, all right, hey, general 10 people from the public, who do you like in the movie? Who did you not? Like, what fucking panel were they looking at that was like, I know who we got to keep from the first one, Charlie Day, and he needs to be at the center point of all of this.
Well,
like, how did that happen?
Funny you say that. It's funny you say that because to me, there's more truth to that than you'd think. Because this one feels much more made by committee than the first one did. Mm-hmm. Like, and I think a lot of the issues that I have with it are that it's like, you know, this was a movie. It was like, oh, we want to make a sequel to the first. What's a whole bunch of ideas that we could have happen in it? You know, my guess is that the director probably wasn't. It wasn't like the director was like, here's my idea for a sequel to Pacific Rim 2 I think is really inspired. You know, it was like the producers were like, we're making a sequel to this thing. It did big money. Mm-hmm. You know, we're going to hire a director that we can have make the movie we want to make. We all have a different idea of what this movie is. You know, let's pull ideas out of a hat and stitch them together into a story. You know, and I think so to a certain point, I don't know how they came to Charlie Day being the villain, but you know, my guess is it wasn't like a singular vision for a movie birthed this.
No. They were like, hey, those acting chops in number 1 were pretty fucking awesome. Let's fucking take it further now.
I mean, you guys know I love scene chewing characters in movies like this because it's just so much fun. And he's completely off the chain, even compared to the last movie. I'm like, of course his character is like this egotistical douchebag. Of course he's like a rock star scientist, and so I was totally on board. And even it was stupid that he was the villain, but like I guess they painted themselves into a corner. They were like, what thread do we have to pull on from the original? It's like, well, I guess they brain bonded with the kaiju.
I liked him going private sector and all of him ripping on him for that. Yeah. And I liked that the British guy had more FaceTime. I liked him.
And I loved Charlie Day's weird sexual tryst with a kaiju brain.
Dude, I enjoyed that reveal of the brain in the thing. I knew something was coming, but I wasn't 100% sure what it was going to be. And that was satisfying to see him jump into that relationship.
I wish there was kind of more of that, because as we all know, I'm a big fan of The Man with Two Brains with Steve Martin.
Yes.
And like I could just see that being more of the movie. It doesn't need to be relegated to one scene.
Speaking of which, there's something in this movie that went almost unremarked on, but haunts me, which is when Amaro was training and he walks in and there's like a floating brain in a jar and he's like, oh, I see they've still got Sarah around. And then they put her in the ceiling. Dude. I'm like, what is that? Who is that? Like, whose nightmare life is that leaving? What? Like, she's just like perceiving. She's blind and deaf and can't think about anything, can't see anything. She's just forced to live as a brain in a jar. And I'm like, that's
forced
horrifying.
To take in the trauma of everyone who puts on the other helmet.
Yeah.
Just live through all their traumas all the time.
Wait, when did that happen? I missed that moment completely.
It was very little, but it was like had such horrifying implications.
John Boyega goes to train with the girl. And she's having issues, I guess, but she's in the testing chamber and she is trying to join with the brain that they have in a jar that they're keeping alive through wires. And he says, I see they still got Sarah here. So I guess she's been there for years in this hellish mental prison.
That is creepy.
Yeah. And he just like puts her away, just like slots her into like a cubby. Just puts Sarah away for a while. This waking death.
Okay, that I wish they had more of those moments because that's hilarious.
That was horrifying.
Yeah.
Almost as cringy was when John Boyega did the Salt Bay meme, but with the sprinkles.
I saw that.
Yeah, well, there was that, and there was also the tra-la-la-la-la.
Oh no! You just reminded me that was in the...
That dated it for sure.
Nuts.
I was like, okay.
Well, it dated it because that meme was like at least 10 years older than this.
Right.
Was.
It wasn't even a current meme. That's like old school YouTube.
That's special. That's a special kind of like whoops. But for me, the most egregious thing in probably the whole film is just, again, I want it. I know even if it's pulpy, even if it's like over the top and stuff, I still need the decisions to be rooted in reality in order to care about anything. If you're making dumb decisions every step of the way, go die. It's fine. Like I'm not going to root for you if you're not making the right choices. And so like when Charlie Day is revealed as the villain and the CEO of the company is aiming the gun at him to pull the trigger. Yes. Shoot him. He's a threat. He's about to end the world. Shoot him. But then he hits it with the stick, the other dude, and he runs off up to the roof and is like releasing nanobots that heal the kaiju, already a huge mistake. But then even at the very end, the co-pilot ejects, the girl takes his place, they're fighting. How did the co-pilot know what building, and how did he get up to the roof to punch him in the face when he's about to escape? Like that kind of stuff where the kaiju's dead and goes, time for plan B, turns, reveal co-pilot. He has to have a heroic moment, so let's teleport him up to the roof to punch Charlie Day in the face.
That co-pilot was so boring too. Why did he get that? No, it made no sense. And also, when Charlie Day like ran off, it felt like a Joker-esque moment. You know, like like run to the roof. Yeah. So weird.
It would have been hilarious if Charlie Day was like, "Wait a minute, how'd you find me?" And he like pans over, and like the escape pod just happened to land on the same roof.
Yeah, right. And how did they take down 4 elite security guards? 2 scientists, one who has a injured leg, and then the security guards that are still very conscious, because I was looking at their faces as the doors shut. They just decide not to go back up. They're like, don't radio for help. Let's just they win. Let's just go down to the elevator in a pile and wait there.
These are the questions that are going to keep me up at night. Honestly,
man, I don't want to live in that world.
Yeah, and the whole Shao Corporation thing. And I'm going to be careful how I phrase this, because no one country is meant to be superior over another. But like, it's so obviously like Chinese domination propaganda. It's like, no, trust us. Trust our massive tech conglomerates. We have your best interests in mind. And there's long untranslated stretches of Chinese. I was like, this is so ham-fisted and bizarre, and just turns me off the movie even more, because I can see what you're doing.
He said too much. Destroy him. Shadow Corporation, get him. Get him. One thought, just to speak to Scott Eastwood. I watched the first one with Mac, and she caught like the second half of this one with me. And she walks in and she just goes, "It's funny they replaced Charlie Hunnam with someone hotter and stupider."
Wait, is he Clint Eastwood's son?
Yeah.
But why? What does he do? Has he done anything? No.
He shows up and stuff.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
That's pretty much his life.
Kind of...
He was so boring.
Yeah. He plays the same exact role in a Fast and Furious movie.
Okay.
So I feel like that's his niche, is to show up and be like hot, stupid, and a little bit comedic.
It's my dream, dude. That's crazy. Living my dream.
So far, I have one of those things down.
A little bit comedic. He didn't tell a single joke.
I know, but he's being tongue in cheek a little bit the whole time. He's just like, huh. No. This is like an attitude he has.
This is crazy because I watched the second one this morning. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember what he looks like.
He just has kind of darker hair than Charlie. They're all basically the same. But I do appreciate that they were like, let's have fewer people that look like Chris Pratt's cousin in this movie. Let's change it up a little bit. Now it's 5 years later.
5 or 10 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do like occasionally when people are like, oh, I can't tell, like, I watch I'm not saying this is me, but people watch a movie from another country and they go, everyone's faces kind of blend together, and we're like, it's kind of racist. Problem is, all of these white guys, kind of bland looking white guys in these two movies, really do run together even for me. Like
they look the same.
They all look the same.
No.
It's
but in the first movie, when he was at that mining whatever place in Alaska after his brother died, watching the television, and it was that other guy being like, I'm a hero. I was like, is he watching it? Is that him? And who is this? Is this someone else?
Yeah.
Very hard to tell what the fuck was going on.
Very true.
Oh, Hollywood.
Speaking of questionable ethnic decisions, why was that very, very white girl named Amara Namani? I have a feeling that was... they had a different intention for casting, and then they were like, no.
Yeah.
There's too many people of color in this movie.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I think... No, it's because it's AMARUGH. And Namani ends in a Y. There you go.
I see. Yeah. Got it. So, of course, we've come back around to our ratings. Let's go in opposite order this time. So, Joanna, where does Pacific Rim Uprising belong?
I'm not going to put it in hell because it was kind of fun to talk about and silly to poke fun at. And like, if I had to watch it again, I would be fine to do so. So I'm going to put it in low purgatory, and I'm going to put the original Pacific Rim in upper purgatory. I can't quite put it into heaven yet. So that's my final, but what a journey. And, well, I have a question, but let's do this after the rankings.
Okay. All right. So then it was me. For me, this is an easy hell. I was very disappointed. I was like, great, more giant monster fights. How badly can they mess this up? And they messed it up pretty bad from a me perspective. They had good elements, like the setup. John Boyega is a great heroic character, and it was like watching a Transformers movie with a bonus side of army fetishism and Chinese nationalism, and it was just
So a Transformer,
basically, and it just made me feel gross and bored for the most part. So yeah.
Wow, nice. I would probably put this just a notch above the first one.
Oh no!
To be honest, I would sooner watch this one again than the first one.
No fucking way.
But I'm probably not gonna watch either one. But to me, this feels like Scar looming over Mufasa at the bottom of purgatory. Like, that's how close they are. It's one's hanging on and one is kind of just taunting that it barely made it a little further in. But like visually, it was better and more enjoyable. The lead, John Boyega, was much more enjoyable to watch. Like, I think that's the difference maker for me. The major difference maker is that the character that you're following the most is more enjoyable in the second to me. I can watch John Boyega far more than I can watch Charlie Hunnam in that kind of setting. So the time passed a little less slowly on the second one. That's yeah. I'm gonna steal that method of
I'm so glad that you could come in with that take. I'm so glad someone did it. I'm not gonna do that. I can't agree there.
Yeah, fair.
No, but I'm here for it. No, I think that if the first one I thought was a bad script, but the Guillermo-ness of it was what elevated it. This one just doesn't have that Guillermo-ness. So there's less for me to enjoy, but there's some like high level technical stuff in it. But I don't know. I probably wouldn't watch either again anytime soon. I don't particularly care for either one, but they're not for me. And this one definitely isn't for me. And I think it's just lacking the passion that Guillermo has for certain things in the first one. Yep. Is just not in this one. It feels like, it was made to make money, and not that the first wasn't, but I just don't feel that same. I don't feel like that there are things that have as much heart in this one. So it's probably a hell. But again, I think people could enjoy it, and I probably would watch this over any Transformers movie.
You have a point there.
So yeah, not for me though. But some nice stuff. That's my take.
Yes. And if this is your favorite kaiju movie, what's wrong with you?
Okay, now Ryan, time for my question. Yes. Is a crossover happening?
I don't think so. I think there was talk about it at one point.
The internet was, when I was looking it up, the rumblings, there's like a teaser trailer that isn't a teaser trailer. It's just shots of Pacific Rim, shots of King Kong, and shots of Godzilla. But I love King Kong, and I was like, if King Kong enters this next one, that would be incredible. But no, if Guillermo was directing and King Kong anyway.
Yeah, I would love a Guillermo Godzilla movie. But yeah, I don't think it's happening. Yeah, because
I thought that's why we were watching these. No, I'm kidding.
This is bizarre because you clearly don't remember. You were the one most advocating. You were like, let's watch the Pacific Rim movies. Let's do it.
Because I think I was thinking about a different movie.
What were you thinking about?
I think I was thinking about that movie where the big cruise ship overturns and they all have to get out of the cruise ship.
The Poseidon Adventure? That has nothing to do with monsters.
This is the best. I'm so glad I'm here for this.
I know. I thought we were just pitching fun movies, and I was going to pitch Perfect Storm and Dante's Peak as well, because they live in the same universe.
I'm going to say something crazy in this ratings game.
All right.
But I'm glad we watched it.
I think that Atlantic Rim is the best of the three. Because I had the most fun watching that one. For better or worse, I smiled more during Atlantic Rim.
Sounds like we need a mini episode. Sounds like we need a mini episode to cover it.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Will you come back for Atlantic Rim?
Oh, dude, in a second.
Also, there's so much sequel potential because we could do Arctic Rim.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Indian Rim.
We could go to Mars. We could do anything.
I'm wondering, do you guys have the same grading scale? Like where it's good to bad and like the worst is the boring, right? So it's like so bad it's good. Tell Me We Saw the Room always comes up. And then you've got the greatest films, and then you've got like I was just bored. It's kind of on the bottom.
That's been a debate. That's been a debate for us because I've never been able to put a fine point on how I do it, because like when we did Godzilla 98 with Matthew Broderick, like that's I think objectively terrible movie, but it's really fun. I mean, it's like
so that one's in heaven.
I was
for
never
me.
bored.
So fun.
And to me, it was like, in a weird way, I had to put it in hell because it was so remarkably bad. But like hell is almost like the worst. Sometimes the worst ones are the ones I put in purgatory because I'm just like, what do you do about this?
And like, for me, my scale is always
standouts go to hell.
Yeah, if I would watch it again and enjoy it, if I would watch it again and be like, okay, or if I'd be like, absolutely not, I will never turn that on again in my life. I think that's how I rate them.
I think I might have to move them both into like upper level hell then. Darn it. Based on that criteria, because I don't think I'll watch them again. The visual effects are great, but there's so many films that have amazing visual effects and a better story, so yeah.
That is true.
You bumped my rating down.
And audience, if you're still listening in, you let us know who's more boring, the Charlie from the first movie, or what's his name from
the other Charlie from the second.
No, wait, but what's Aaron? Aaron is his name from the King Kong or Godzilla movie?
Oh, yeah. Oh, Aaron Tyler Johnson.
Aaron Tyler Johnson or Charlie? Who's more dull?
Yeah.
Cast your vote.
What was his name? It was like something like Ford Focus.
Yeah.
His character's name was Ford.
One final question. Did Jägermeister pay to sponsor this movie? How did they make that deal happen? And I was like, what if Dorito had gotten it? You know, they're like, hop in the Dorito, everybody. I just thought that was fun to think about.
That is hilarious. Yes. We call the giant robots Fritos Flavorlicious. Funtacular.
They're like,
bots.
Cool Ranch, come on down. I know how to fund a film. I'll start writing.
Look out, Tostitos Scoops is on your tail.
What fun.
All right, we got...
Oh, and with that, to the fan mail, Ryan.
We've got a fan letter from George D. And like last time, this is a longer one, but I will read most of it because it's a nice one. At the beginning of this summer, I found myself merging into one of my Godzilla lanes, as Ryan so succinctly put it. It had been many years since I had immersed myself in the Godzilla world, although I have never lost the wonder, joy, and amazement for the Godzilla movies I felt as a child. After watching Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, I began searching around for a high-quality Godzilla podcast for diehard fans, and boy was I disappointed when I discovered the Godzillavangelists. No, of course I'm joking. I immediately became engrossed in your podcast.
Get him on the pod.
I immediately became engrossed in your podcast and fell in love with all your personalities, parentheses, yay parasocial relationships. I began in chronological-ish rewatch of the entire series and paired each film with listening to the corresponding podcast. That's what we're here for, man. This greatly improved my summer, which was challenging for personal reasons. For that, I have to say thank you. Just tonight, Friday the 22nd of September 2022. That's how slow we get to these messages. My parents and I watched The Return of Godzilla. Like Ryan, this is the only movie I'd never seen in the entire franchise. I was so happy to hear this is something we had in common upon listening to that episode. And I feel great. I can now say I've seen every official live-action Godzilla movie. All 38.
What an accomplishment.
You made it. I feel so moved to write in and let you know how much I've appreciated listening to the podcast and rewatching the series over the past few months. I've even tried to get my friends into it with mixed results.
That's funny.
Let me close by saying I'm eagerly looking forward to your coverage of the Millennium series, which we started by the time this comes out, which contains my favorite film in the franchise, Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters, All Out Attack. That's one of
That's one movie?
Yep.
The best title ever.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's one of my favorites too, even if the title is terrible.
You know where you're getting.
Yeah.
Anyways, love you guys and all you do. Hope you're doing well in your personal lives, and I look forward to continuing to listen and watch along. Kindest Screonks, George.
Aw, thank you.
that was
Oh my
very
gosh,
nice.
they always warm my little
It's
heart.
very sweet, and there's 2 PSs. First PS. Any possibility
Vote for
of
me.
merch being available to purchase. I would love a shirt or
Yes.
a hat.
Yeah, tell us which quote you want. We can make it happen.
Yes.
It's still possible.
If
Is it banana for scale?
Yeah.
if you come to the live show, we might be able to help you, but we'll see.
Not yet. No, yes, we will be able to. Anyways.
And second PS, also I gotta shout out the Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 1974 episode for being my favorite. Shit gets me rolling every time. Cowabunga, which is a reference to the joke Joanna and Julia made. Julia's the best. If you're listening, Julia, shout out to you.
Shout out to Julia.
But anyways, thank you so much, George. It's very sweet.
Yeah. I also got to say, like, it really warms my heart. And I feel like we've had so many people in our close circle now who have come on as guests. And whenever I kind of share some of these notes that we get, like, they're all like, oh, too. So we really appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking the time to write in.
Yes, we love to see it. We love to read it. So if you would like to be on the air or just to help us, write a review on Apple Podcasts, send us an email, leave comments on our YouTube, interact with our social media, share us with your friends, people like weird movies, bad movies, good movies.
Fly to our live show in LA next year.
Yes.
Come see my play in New York in December. Just kidding. Follow me.
Yes.
Wait, I want to see that.
What?
Yeah.
I'll come.
If
I doubt. Well, I don't know if the timing is right, but just in case, tell them where they can find out more about your play, Joanna.
Oh, is it okay to pitch it
Yeah,
right now? I was
go
going to
for it.
ask if I could pitch it at the end. Okay, if anyone lives in New York, just follow me on Instagram. It's at Joe Brodecki, and I'll be posting information for tickets and the theater in Manhattan where we'll be going up. But I recommend checking it out. And tell your grandma too and all your besties because we got to sell those tickets.
So yes, if you want to see a fun show and say hi to Joanna, go for it. I wish I could be there. But in the meantime, thank you so much for being here, Jordan. It was great to have
my
you
pleasure.
here.
Yeah,
it
thank
was,
you.
That was great. You
So
got any
fun.
plugs?
Any what?
Any plugs?
Oh, any plugs?
got anything to plug?
Oh, shoot, man. I mean,
You in any plays?
I'm not in any plays, but I mean, if you are into visual effects stuff, you can check us out at corridordigital.com, and my Instagram is VFX with Jordan. Yeah, we do some fun stuff, so it's probably worth a check out.
Yeah, I love watching the show. Every month or two,
Yeah, I
I'll
can't
just
wait to check
binge and check out the
Heck
ones
yeah,
I've
man.
lost out
Yeah.
on. So
Yeah.
if you guys haven't seen it, you gotta.
That's very kind. Thank you.
But yes, to our dear friends, thank you so much for listening and keep spreading the word of Godzilla. Godzillavangelists, a Geek Stew Network podcast, is brought to you by me, Ryan Sargent, and my friends Joanna Brodecki and Sam Schlenker. This episode was edited by Brogan Malloy. All our incredible music is composed by Robert Mai, and our wonderful artwork is drawn by Cassidy Stone. Special thanks to our families, friends, and the wonderful artists who made the movies we talked about today. Godzillavangelists is a satirical, critical work not affiliated or endorsed by Toho, Legendary Pictures, or anyone behind the Godzilla series. Visit our website at godzillavangelists.com. We're also on Twitter at GodzillaCast and Instagram at Godzillavangelists. If you prefer to listen to us online, we have a YouTube channel, and the latest episode is always on SoundCloud too. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you join us next time. In the meantime, keep spreading the word of Godzilla.